Thank you so much, man, for taking the time to do this, and I'm excited to expand into the video format.
Yeah.
It's definitely something a lot of people have been you know asking about. So I'm glad that you've agreed to kind of pilot it with me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just before we dive in to
Uh,
the Manhattan's flip, I'm just curious. We talked a little bit the other day about how, like, you and I are a little bit resistant to the super visual heavy aspect of, like, everything needs a picture or video, and we sometimes like to let the work speak for itself. But I found it interesting. Like, I know since you've been doing these video flips on Twitter, it's kind of opened some new eyes and some new ears to your work. So I
yeah.
was wondering if you could just talk a little bit about how, doing these flips, what it's done for you in terms of visibility and just, connecting with people and having new listeners find you.
Yeah, like you said, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I'm just about the music first and foremost. So I didn't really care for the visuals until I think it was the first flip I did. I ended up posting the video,
Mhm.
the mint condition flip, and I just had some free time that day, and I kind of wanted to try a setup because a lot of people just been telling me, I need to show my face more. So I seen people were engaging more with the videos. I mean, the music's gonna be there. The music's gonna be the music. But people really been hitting me like, man, you seem like you're having fun. They can get a sense of me because sometimes I can come off really blunt and really dry. But I'm really a goofy person if you know me. So I
Mhm.
think I kind of express that through the videos, which is cool. So people kind of get a sense, of who I am, and of me as a person. How I act and things like that. And yeah, the visibility's been good. I've been getting a lot of looks from a lot of people, which is cool. Yeah, but me, like I said, I'm just more so about the music. So I'm just glad that I can kind of finally mesh the two for the world to kind of see it, and I appreciate them, taking it in that way.
Yeah, and the thing that's cool is, I mean, it's funny to me. Like, I think sometimes we don't understand what we're good at until we push ourselves out of our comfort zone. And it's
Right.
interesting to me that when I started seeing you post the flip videos, like the first couple that I caught, the mint condition one, and then I think it was the Nautilus one that came after that.
Mhm.
I was thinking, I remember I showed my wife, and we're both like, wow, he's so good with the visuals and the cuts, and just like, as you said, there's little bits of, you do see the sense of humor, but it doesn't like consume the entire
Mhm.
thing. The music does really shine through. But I was kind of floored that you didn't, consider yourself much of a video guy before doing these, because it seems like you have such a natural knack for pairing the visuals
Yeah.
with the music.
Yeah, well, I did actually take a class in high school. It was like the only like video editing class I took. So I've always liked videos. I mean, I used to run around with my friends with a camera, like we used to just shoot each other. I never did anything with the footage, but it kind of stems from that. Just always having the camera on, and my thing when I hear music, I see things in my head like to go with the music, but always not able to translate myself. But the videos allow me to do that, and it just gives you a glimpse into my haven, my cave, whatever you want to call it, and just lets people see more inside and see my personality too. But yeah, definitely big on visuals. I'm a movie buff too. I love watching movies, so I think it kind of all stems from that.
Yeah, that's great. And I feel like, the other thing that I think people are seeing is, there's just a real, the, I think the visuals kind of underscore and highlight how creative your beats are, because when you're seeing the video switch ups that kind of indicate something in the music, it's sort of like a cue to your ear to pay attention to the complexity of what's happening a little bit. And I definitely feel like, with the Nautilus flip, I was revisiting that a little bit before we did this interview, and there's just so much going on there, and same with the Manhattan ones. There's so much going on there, And I feel like just the rapid cuts and the way that the video switches up, it's just like another reminder to me, like, okay, really, really make sure that you're paying attention to everything this guy's doing here, because he's got a lot going on in this track.
I think it's a sort of a producer thing. I got a few buddies that I've met, through session, and they like to kind of, I don't know, kind of, perform with their beats going. And I kind of picked up on that a little bit. I mean, it just allows, the listener to kind of see their reaction, and, when they hit different markers, and when different instruments come in, and when different drum rolls come in, different crashes come in. And it allows you to kind of be in the seat of the pants of the producer. You know what I mean? Because as a listener, they're just listening. It's real linear. But, when I'm making music, that's how I'm actually feeling. And I'm able to display that, real time, and with the videos and doing the marks and stuff like that.
And one more thing I wanted to touch on before we get into the Manhattan's flip, you and I were talking about, before these flip challenges, we'd both been having sort of our own creative blocks. I remember, I've been teaching full-time in person since March, or no, actually since January of 2020. So since almost a year ago. And, obviously the pandemic hit in March, and it's really kind of like thrown like everyone, my whole life, for a loop. And I feel like keeping writing afloat during that time has been really challenging for me, especially with like the new teaching load I've been taking on during that time. And I feel like I hit a point in between, kind of right before Thanksgiving and Christmas, where I was just really mentally burnt, and I didn't have the wherewithal to just kind of produce at the level I wanted to. And I feel like in some ways the flip challenges have kind of, just being a part of this has kind of like re-inspired me. And I know when I talked to you, you said that you felt like it kind of freed you up a little bit to not have to stress about like reaching out to other artists, or the pressure of, selling a beat. And it kind of just gave you the opportunity to think outside the box and create freely without, expectation.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of been the case for me. I mean, like I said, I mentioned session, and we've been doing this since March, April, with Battle Lab. I'm a resident producer there, and every Friday, we're hitting it every Friday. It's about a 3 to 4 hour show. We're featuring, top producers, some unknown producers, but I make music. I started making music for the show. Instead of doing what I naturally do, like, trying to work and, get stuff to artists, work on my own projects, beat tapes and things like that. So, throughout the year, I've just been really burnt out, because I haven't been fun. It hasn't been, not that it hasn't been fun, but it's more so turned into a job. You know what I mean? And the flips allow me, to be a kid again. I mean, I'm big on like taking stuff apart and putting it back together. Like that was me as a child, So with the flips, it allows me to do the same thing, and revisit my childhood a little bit and kind of see what's going on with the song. Why did I pick this part? Why do these chords make me feel this way? And just adding little different elements here and there in the beat, so that the flips have, gave me a boost. And a lot of people have been hitting me and saying, man, like your sound right now is really, it's different, but in a good way. And it's because it's coming natural to me. And it feels good when I make them. So, I just kind of went on a roll with them. So I just been doing them. I kept doing them.
Yeah, that's great. And one of the ones, it's funny, you've been so gracious in just sharing information about how you put them together. And I remember when I wrote about, I forget exactly how I worded it, but I wrote something. I've been trying to like retweet the flips with a little, a line or two of commentary, just pointing out, hey, I'm really listening to each and every one of these and trying to show you guys a little bit of love, and that I'm really appreciate what you're doing. And I wrote something about the Manhattan ones. I forget what I said, but it was kind of like something about sampling and layering. And you were saying that you really broke it up into little pieces and were like creating chord structures out of the bits and pieces. And just the way that you explained it just in our text exchange, It sounded so interesting. I was like, this seems like the perfect thing that I might not be able to fully capture with words. And if we can do kind of like a screen share where you walk us through how you did it, you know, I think that would be really cool for the readers to see.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you had it backwards. You were saying I was layering. I am layering with instruments, but it also stems from the sample. So I start by layering the sample and then adding instrumentation to complement that. But I'm just picking different pieces and parts from the whole song, not just like a loop, like an 8-bar loop or a 16. I'm actually going across the whole track and finding different things that I like and kind of piecing them all together.
And with that particular one, you took something that I remember you said you took a part of the song that was kind of non-obvious that other people, it was sort of like a hidden section of the song maybe they used for part of the beat.
It was the horn section.
Right.
So there's a breakdown in the song, or I think it's a bridge or something, but the turnaround, there's this horn section playing. And like I said, I told you privately, like I made probably 2 or 3 beats with, you know, before this, I landed on this one, but I kind of started grabbing different things or different elements around the whole song. But that horn section really stood out to me. And you can hear it in the flip when I play it. And I'll kind of show you how I pieced that together and kind of broke that apart and rearranged it on the sampler.
Awesome. I'm gonna, I just realized I think I need to give you,
enable a screen share.
Make you the co-host, So song co-host, and then I think you should be able to screen share.
Okay. Let's see. I'll do this. All right, can you see that?
Yeah, I can see it perfect. Oh, okay. This is great.
All right, so I'll start off. I'll just play the track all the way through, and then we'll go back through. Okay. Oh, wait, let me change my settings and real quick so you can hear the audio. All right.
That was really cool, and there's a little bit in that version that you don't get in the video because this I think the video is maybe right around 2 minutes.
Yes, it's right around a minute because IG gives you 60. I've been trying to keep them short, just to keep people kind of entertained, and it keeps the replay value there too because you give them too much and it's like, all right, I don't want to listen anymore, but just the right amount will keep people coming back. But yeah, I'll go through, I'll solo. So let's start off with the sample. So, of course, that's the sample.
Waiting. Could we have the same table we had yesterday?
So what I decided to do, it's 3 chords. So I decided to play them backwards. So it goes.
Waiting. Could we have the same table?
I went. this key that's repeating, I have a loop on it, as you can see. That's why it sounds like it's stuttering a little bit.
Yeah.
And then what's it? There's a
you're triggering all those with the pads, so you're playing what you just did with the physical control.
Yeah, I'm playing out with the controller, but I'll play it all together and then kind of give you, because I have different pieces. I have a horn section, these for like triggers that come in, and then on the other end I have the horns I was mentioning to you. And let's see how that goes. Section I was talking about, but it actually goes like this. So I decided to take them up and rearrange them. And that's what you hear, but coming into on the top of the one, there's specifically this arrangement that you can hear that's very prominent, which is this. So I'll play that all together with the sample. This lead on top to kind of follow. Added some piano in there too. And then I layered it also with the trumpet too. So I just got a bunch of different layers of things, right? And that just kind of follows the same pattern that I did with the sample horn. Of course, I got the bass. The bass follows the sample.
Are you playing that? Just sorry to interrupt. Are you playing that bass out with the pads too?
Yeah, I'm playing the bass out. Well, I either do it with the pads. Sometimes I do it with the. I have a mini Arteria keyboard that I do. I use this. If you can see it.
Oh, the virtual background's cutting it out a little bit.
Yeah, but you can. It's a keyboard, MIDI keyboard. Yep. But yeah, I use this on most of my stuff. I keep that in my backpack. But yeah, I just kind of replayed what the sample was doing. It's very faint. I mean, it's just to kind of complement the bass that's in the sample already, you know. And then I added the drums. The drums kind of came first, but the fills. That's pretty much it. Some sections I added, like I said, little accents with the, it's just triggers, to kind of give the beat a little movement, you know what I mean? And it's the same, it's actually in the same key as the main chord, which is so. And that's the thing about rearranging or chopping up samples and being able to put them together so somebody can like go over and play it again, is making sure everything's in the right key. That's very important, and that's kind of how I approach it when I'm listening and when I'm taking different pieces that I like.
So I have a quick question for you. For someone who's watching this, trying to glean a little bit of knowledge, for trying to keep things in key, how much are you doing that by ear, and then how much are you using the tools that machine gives you to make sure things are locked like that? For someone who might not have the trained ear.
Yeah, man, it's a lot by ear, and that's just been developed over time. I mean, it's been times where I've made stuff and shit was all out of key, and I know, a machine allows you, or specifically like Serato Sample, like different plugins, they allow you to see like what key things are in. But when it comes down to like a specific note, like, it's just something that's by ear, especially like, and understanding too, like the whole song is all in the same scale too. You know what I mean? So it's just a matter of picking out the right notes to kind of lay on top of what you already have. Like, for instance, the horns, the horns are the notes. I just had to rearrange the notes to get them to match what I chopped, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah. No, it does. That's that's so interesting. Just watching, watching the amount of thought and time that went into every element of that beat. Like, I'm, in my head, I'm thinking that must have taken a really long time. But I'm just curious for you, how long does it take, start to finish on a track like this to come up with all of those different sequences and layers and patterns, and then figure out a way to make them all make sense?
Yeah,
Together.
it probably took, I want to say for the most, well, like I said, I did make a few beats with it before during the day. So it took me like all day. If I didn't make the other beats before that, it'd probably take me maybe an hour or two just for completely.
Wow.
But the basis of the beat, I mean, you got to understand the basis of the beat is only like 4 pads. So that's the whole beat. I mean, if you think about it, so I mean that chop took me like 15 minutes realistically to come up with that, because I heard it in my head. I'm like, okay, I like that, how that lays out, and everything just kind of, everything else is just sprinkles. It's just candy on top, But once I have a groove or a foundation, then I start layering and finding different pieces throughout the song. But it's important to get your groove first, get your groove locked in, the loop and the drums, and then everything else can come later.
Yeah, so it's about getting that foundation, those main chops that you played out
That's it.
And then all the bells and whistles.
All the bells and whistles will come, because the song allows for that. Like, with the horn section, I can rearrange and play these horns however I want, you know what I'm saying? But it's just me taking the time to kind of like chop them up, or micro-chop them, if you will, so I can play them. I mean, I think I don't know the quote, but Roger Lynn was explaining like the NPC to people, and the purpose of it was to like loop in real time for performers, but also it just gives you it allows you to play as an instrument. I think people kind of miss that idea. You know what I mean?
Right.
And they limit themselves by using larger sections of music. You know what I mean? So, I mean, it just depends. But it's also you too. I mean, the machine just allows you to kind of work and get across what you hear in your head also too. It's not so much the machine, but yeah, that always stuck with me though. I read that quote somewhere, or I heard somebody tell me about it, because I don't think a lot of people do that nowadays. It's more so just find a loop or find a big chunk or a big section and kind of put some drums on it. And I was like that too. I used to do that a lot too. But I have more fun kind of breaking things down and making it my own, if you will. Because of course, this song has been sampled before. I mean, this Madlib used this with Freddie Gibbs for Shame, and it doesn't sound nothing like that. So my approach is, how can I rearrange it and manipulate it in such a way where it sounds totally different from the sample source, or somewhat similar to the sample source, but has my own kind of groove. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's, I mean, I love what you just touched on there too. I think a lot of that entered the challenge are familiar with the Freddie Gibbs and Madlib track, but what was so interesting to me about this challenge is that you see that, I think we all know on some level that any record can be flipped infinity ways, but to kind of see it play out in practice with all the different ways people did it, it was just phenomenal to me that, 100 different producers could come up with such varied takes on the same, 3 minutes of music was just crazy. It was really interesting to watch it play out. And I really appreciate you breaking down and actually giving us a peek behind the curtain here. And I'm curious too, one other thing that was popping in my head while you were just playing this out, it seems like you're really comfortable with the machine, the interface and all the different features and functions it has. If someone is coming at this with a little bit less experience, when you were kind of starting out on the machine, was there anything you did to kind of scale down and lock in so you didn't get overwhelmed by all the capabilities? Like, is there a way to simplify for people?
Because I mean, initially, I'm first and foremost, I'm an NPC user, so I mean, I was just my idea of beat making is bread and butter, like the meat and potatoes. Like I just need whatever's chunky enough that sounds good. So big drums, a nice chop or a nice sample, a bass or a bass line, and that was it for me. That was pretty much my production on the machine for like a year or two. Just very bare bones, very basic, down to the roots. Just good sources, good choices. Like I said, good choices of drums and, EQing them a certain way. So that's how I started. Me doing all this instrumentation and all this added stuff, this came way later. You know what I'm saying? Like this is like, years of playing around, like learning keys and learning chords and things like that. Like that took some time. You know what I mean? So,
Right.
Just the fundamentals, I would say. Treat it as though it was hardware, and limit yourself. Try and like limit yourself here and limit yourself on the machine too, so you don't get overwhelmed. And because I see a lot of people do that. A lot of people hit me. They're like, "Oh man, are you playing instruments, or like what are you doing, or how are you doing the fills, and how are you doing that?" It's like, man, make sure you get the meat and potatoes in first, which is the basic groove of the track, the whatever chop you hear in your head, whatever drums, whatever foundation you have, and start with that first. Everything else comes later.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's really good advice. And I was curious too, with the foundational chop of the song, the first program that you kind of played out first, where there was the little bit of reverse at the end of the loop. I was wondering if you could pull that back up just for a second.
What's that? Where the horns come in?
It's like the main sample chop that the song is built around. The pattern that you played out at the beginning. You showed how there was like
a Okay, so I can cue when the chords are. So that's one chord, that's two, and then that's three.
We had the same table.
So I start on the third one, and then I go from, instead of 1, 2, 3, I go 3, 2, 1.
Mm-hmm.
So I.
Could we have the same table?
Start there. And then I kind of just add, off of that.
And I love that little, now that you show it, it makes so much sense. But the little loop that you have,
piano loop, yeah. That's what caught my ear in the first place, was the keys,
right?
The twinkling, it's kind of like arpeggiated. That's what caught my ear first. So that's what made me do that like that. That's what made me do the chop like that, because I wanted to end here. I knew I wanted to end on these keys, but I had to figure out how. So I worked in reverse. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I do that a lot. I kind of work in reverse like that. I'm like, okay, well, this is the main of the song. This is the main feeling of the song. So how do I get here?
Right. This is super interesting. And I think, for people who are trying to take away information and learn from things like this. There's a value in actually seeing it, because sometimes, you know, I can only capture, if I'm writing a 5-minute article after we've spoken, there's only so much of like the nuts and bolts and minutia of the track that I can capture with my words. And it still might be hard for someone to actually see with their eyeballs. So I just think you taking us through and walking us through like each step of the process and just what your mindset is and how you're executing the different things and, you know, what features you're using is super helpful for someone, even a non-machine user, just to kind of think about this from a, you know, a compositional standpoint. I think this is really helpful.
Yeah.
How many times do you have to listen, or did you listen to the song to, you know, come up with this final product? Did you have to do a bunch of repeat listens, or was it just like once or twice?
It was a few repeat listens, and just because, I mean, it's a great song. Like, you
Right.
know, I just put, before I even sampled it in, I put the record on the player, and I probably listened to it maybe 2 or 3 times. And then, you know, I sat with it for a while. Sometimes what I do is I'll listen to it and gather a bunch of information, or as much as I need as far as what it's doing or what they're doing with the instrumentation, and I'll just completely go mute. Like, I'll cut any sound off, and I'll kind of, you know, come up with the formula in my head of how I want to do it. I know sometimes people like to get the sample and then start, you know, turning knobs and stuff like that, but I like to sit with stuff for a little bit. So it took me maybe, I wanted to say I sat with it maybe 30 minutes or so, 15 to 30 minutes before I started actually diving in to do anything. Yeah.
And is there anything else from this particular Manhattan's flip that you think we should know about, just in terms of how it came together, or, you know, little special tricks that you did? Is there anything we have to run through?
No, not so much. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it, man. There's nothing really much else. It's the main part. You got the horns. I had these little pieces. Oh, so these green highlighted pieces that I have here, these are just like accents. And I particularly you know, labeled them just to show you, because the loop could be a little obnoxious sometimes if it's just the same loop throughout the whole song. So these pieces kind of help the song move a little bit. And I'll explain what my thinking. So this is a 4-bar pattern. So I knew I wanted it to come around the turnaround for the next section. So right here, the horns come in. Yeah, I just picked different things, like little markers that I like personally, to kind of, you know what I'm saying? Just so it's not the same loop, you know, for 8 bars, because that could be a little like, it's like, all right, well, what is the song going to do? It's a turnaround, you know? And it's funny, it's I think a term a Knife has coined. It's called turning a corner. That's when the song, you know, it shifts gears, something happens, something comes in, different instruments, or you do something maybe with the drums or something like that. So I kind of got that concept from him a little bit about, you know, having different patterns. So it's not just the same 4-bar pattern through the whole song. It's the same chop, but it's layered, so it changes and it progresses, you know, as it builds. You know what I mean? Kind of like a crescendo. It just builds, and then once it hits, it just falls flat again. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, that's the little accents. I feel like those little subtleties, your ear for those things, though they seem small in isolation, they really add a lot to the whole to make it stand out. You know what I mean? So it's like a subtle thing on its own, but it does a lot to the entire presentation.
Yeah, and that's just something that I kind of took from Dilla. You know, the vocal chops, like different vocal accents and stuff that come in and out of the beat. I mean, he really kind of coined that, you know? And yeah, it kind of just always stuck with me, like his attention to detail in that way, to finding different vocals and, you know, different oohs and ahs. Like, they just give the beat such a feeling, you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. and I'm I'm curious, you know, you've done now, I think maybe like 8 to 10 of these flips. Have you thought about, you know, starting like a YouTube channel, or sort of thinking about ways to expand sort of the video presence, just because you have kind of found an audience with these, a new audience maybe with these things on Twitter and Instagram?
Kind of. I haven't really gave it too much thought. Like I said, I've just been doing it for fun.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, it's something I consider. Now I will say there may be a project in the works with all of these. I won't give too many details about it, but just know it's flip, you know, centered around these flips. And,
Nice. That's great to hear.
yeah. So I'm actually excited about that. I'm looking forward to that.
That's really great to hear. Yeah, and I hear what you're saying. Like, you never want to. It's almost like, you know, you don't talk to the pitcher in the middle of a no-hitter. Like, you don't want to overthink when you're having fun with something like this. You don't want to overthink about it too much and make it too complicated and try to do too much with it, and like lose the magic by thinking about expanding to YouTube or whatever. You know, sometimes it's good to just stick with what's working for a little bit. And
yeah, I mean, it'll come eventually when the time is right.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you hopping on in breaking this down for us today. This was really fun. I think, you know, the Micro-Chop readers have been loudly asking for video and audio for a while, so I think they'll be excited that I finally decided to dip my toe in that water a little bit.
Yeah, and thank you for you know, selecting me to kind of break these down. You know, I'm just excited to, you know, because a lot of people have been hitting me up asking me questions, so I guess this is a way to, you know, kind of peek under the hood a little bit and see what I'm doing.